welcome back to the garage. So this week's project for the S10 is pretty straightforward. So I got looking at the exhaust now that I've gone ahead and done everything else on the frame. And I just couldn't bring myself to put rusty, crusty old exhaust back on the truck. Even though, I mean, it's quite usable. I just couldn't do it. So we went ahead and, spent more money. Not that that ever happens when you're restoring a vehicle. But I went ahead and bought all new exhaust for the truck. We got a new muffler, new tailpipe, new head pipe, new intermediate pipe, new catalytic converter. I got all new hangers, new gasket for the front of the head pipe where it goes on the manifold. And I got a bunch of new clamps, but I already had the clamps, so there was no cost associated with them. Okay, so the first piece of pipe we're going to put on will be our head pipe. It's easier to work from the front to the back, at least in my opinion and experience. So the first thing we are going to do is put on the gasket that goes here, little donut. What I usually do is I take a bit of red high temp gasket maker and I just put it on the back like that. And the reason for that is that will hold our gasket in place, because we're not really using it to seal it, because that's the point of the gasket being there. So with our gasket in place, the next thing we can do is we can sort of snake the head pipe in here, which snake is probably the right word to use because it's kind of awkward. Especially if you're working on the ground, or in my case with things kind of assembled here. It gets to be a little bit of a pain. Okay, with it kind of in place, we'll go ahead and we'll start one bolt. That'll kind of hold it so we can get the other one in. Hopefully I'm not blocking your view. Okay, and what I'll do is I'll get the other bolt in here, just because I'm going to have to be where the camera is. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and tighten these. Personally, I find it easier to tighten them from underneath. But opinions may vary. Okay. that is everything tight. If I can get my socket off here. Okay, so pretty straightforward here. Where the hump is where our catalytic converter goes. So what we're going to do is we're just going to let it kind of hang loose here for now. We're going to put a hanger on it here. But what we're going to do is we're going to put the muffler and the intermediate pipe in next. And that way we'll be able to see where everything else will have to go. Okay, so I ended up hanging the muffler in place. And then what we'll do is we'll slide the tailpipe over the end of the muffler, which we'll take a piece of wire and hang the muffler up. Okay, with that kind of suspended up, we can kind of mess around with our tailpipe now. Because it has to slide over the end of the muffler. Okay. We'll kind of mess around with it and get it over top of there good. Okay, so what we will go ahead and do is weld the tailpipe hanger on. I prefer to weld as much as I can for exhaust stuff because in the grand scheme of things, prevents us from having any future leakage from a clamp getting loose. Okay, that should hold. Now I can actually weld it properly. Okay. So one of the things I've always done is with exhaust, anywhere I end up welding, I just go ahead and I give it a squirt of paint just to protect it from any corrosion. So it's just a bit of high temperature paint. Can't 100% confirm that it does much, but makes me feel better anyway. Okay, so with that hanger welded on there, we've now got our tailpipe, which as you can see is now hung in position. And I mentioned that I hung the muffler. So up here I have my, of course, muffler hanger and everything in position. So what I did was, for now, I left the bolt that goes through here loose. Now what I found was there's two bolt holes on this bracket. I cut it so that I'm just using the top one. And that seemed to put it in position where it should be. So we can start working our way further forward now. Okay, so with everything from up to the muffler done now, we now got to work on from the muffler to the cat. So we have our intermediate pipe, and I had a feeling that we might come up short. So that's not that big of a deal. So our intermediate pipe goes in, and it starts stepping everything down towards our catalytic converter. Which, as you can see, we're a few inches short. Not a big deal. That's why we have pipe. Okay, so literally all I did was take and I tacked a piece of pipe on the end of our intermediate pipe. Now we run an intermediate pipe because obviously it gives us our clearance between our park brake cables. We are going to clamp it here in the muffler. Right? And then obviously I'm going to finish welding this piece of pipe up. We're going to weld the cad in. And we'll be laughing. Okay, so everything's welded up, everything's hung here, and you can see we've got a bit of movement where we need it, right? So that's clamped. Got our muffler, got our intermediate pipe, which is lengthened. We have our catalytic converter. I ended up reusing the original clamp for that, but it's got it so it's not completely loose, but there is a bit of movement there. As you can see, we do have clearance. So, all in all, I would say that was a success.